Welcome to another The Builders Extra. Today, we are going to rewind back to the last episode that was published, episode 89, with Matt Bailey. Matt and I had a great conversation about analytics, data, and a number of other things related to, kind of converting lessons from big business to small business. It's a great episode. Go check it out. But today, we're going to extract some more ideas and thoughts that I have around basically numbers. So one of the things that we talked about was, we talked about a bunch of things that he's had experience with and vice versa. But in particular, way back in the late 90s, I believe this was in the late 90s where he was getting these numbers. But and bear with me because that it all translates, right? The lessons we learned, the lessons I learned back in the 2000s doing internet marketing apply today. Many of those they just, maybe they're in different domains, different platforms, different whatever, different scenarios, but the numbers themselves still apply, or the ideas, the concepts. So back then he had a website. He was doing real estate, I think, and he was very good at real estate. One of the best performers in what he was doing, and most of the leads that he was getting, most of the stuff that he was getting was for search engines. He figured out how to do that, and we talk about that too. How he kind of figured out what the algorithm wanted way back then. And it's too different today, right? How the pages were constructed and stuff. But 80 to 90% of his traffic was coming from search engines. And 89% of, just leads and everything and traffic and all that were coming from search engines. And they would find him online. They would register as a lead. And, you would take that, he'd put that back then. We had spreadsheets, right? You'd throw that into a spreadsheet. That's your CRM. But the problem was all those leads that he was getting from the search engines, he says zero, probably around zero, actually converted into sales. She's getting all this traffic, all this stuff. And that source, all that traffic, they were leads, but they didn't convert into sales, which is kind of important, right? He learned that 5% of the traffic was responsible for 80% of the sales. But where did that traffic come from? It was not the search engines. It was actually articles that he had written where that traffic was coming, to his site. It was related to, I believe he had banner ads and stuff out there, but it was really context. It was in where those people were in the buying cycle, that they were ready when they finally did read that article, or they, contextually they're in a place where they're ready to buy. And then they go to his website, then they become a lead. Those are the ones that were converted into sales. So big numbers are great. They look nice. They look pretty. But are they actually contributing to your profits? That's the question here. So as I thought about that, I think about like my experiences too, having been doing internet marketing over these years, both when I was really focused on, in the 2000s, I was pretty much an affiliate marketer, but I sold digital products and memberships and all this stuff that it was always important to me to figure out what was converting. And I was really, I was a data nerd, analytics nerd, because I did pay-per-click advertising. So you have to be, you really have to love that stuff, because when you're actually spending money, that's even more important than organic traffic. But I was really, really conscious, and we had ways to track conversions and all this stuff. But it always came down to trying to identify the source of traffic that's actually converting. That's the number one thing, right? I mean, when people are hitting your site, they're qualified in different ways. Sometimes we call them tire kickers. It's always been called tire kickers. Somebody that's just looking for information, or they're just testing the waters and doing some shopping. But they're not they're not in that decision stage, right? But then you also got the people that are just ready to buy. They're ready to buy like now or yesterday. And those are the people that, if you can identify them and then you can target them more, that is where your revenue can spike, right? So looking back, when I was doing affiliate marketing and stuff, it was always that. It was always trying to use my tools to identify where that traffic was coming from and doubling down, tripling down on that. But it's also just, understanding that the simple concept that it's not just numbers. Okay. It's back then when I was doing affiliate marketing, pay-per-click, Google AdWords and all that stuff. I had this kind of saying that I said all the time to I had memberships and stuff. I was coached people and had memberships, taught this stuff for years. And one of the things part of my system, part of my methodology was around, because we were testing markets using pay-per-click advertising. Testing markets, testing products, and all this stuff. So we'd have a small spend. We'd test, on scale, a lot of stuff. And then we'd see where the winners were. So it was always like, we identify the winners, identify the losers, get rid of the losers. So they would always say, keep the winners, dump the losers. That was pretty much it. It's pretty simple. Keep the winners, dump the losers. When you're doing anything online today, if you're on social media or however you're doing stuff, it's the same scenario. It's keep the winners, dump the losers. But it's more ignore the losers, because a lot of times you can't. You're not going to stop your organic traffic or your social media stuff or whatever. But you're going to say, okay, I'm getting a lot of stuff going on here, but is that contributing to my sales? And if it isn't, okay, that's going to continue to happen. But let's focus on what is making sense. And that happens with lists too, right? So sometimes, even back in those days when I was doing internet marketing and I was selling my own digital products and memberships and stuff, I had affiliates and stuff that were promoting me. And I did webinars for a while too. I was on different webinars. I would sell my stuff. On one webinar, I remember in particular, I was very niche, so I didn't have a huge, business, but I was pretty good. I had lists of about 10,000 people. I had thousands of people went through my memberships. At any given time, I had 200-300 members active. So that's about the size I was at with that part of my business. But I remember I did a promotion on somebody. We did a webinar for somebody's list, and I got like 300 signups from that promotion. You do a webinar, and afterwards you give them a deal, and 300 people signed up. I did another webinar for another person with a list and got a goose egg. I don't know if we got one, and in between, right? So. It's also the quality of that list and where that matches. Are you really matching in that source? So a list is another source. So I had another affiliate who for years, he sold an ebook, $5 a day, Dennis Becker. You may have heard of him, may not have. At the end of that ebook, he provided resources or ways you could make money. And mine was one of those ways, campaign blasting. But he sent a lot of traffic and members to my products and stuff to buy my ebook and all that stuff related to those methods, because it was really pre-qualified, because he talked, he had used my methods. They had worked for him. He made a lot of money with pay-per-click and affiliate marketing. He was actually part of my memberships and all that. It's a whole story. But anyway, but because it was so pre-qualified, when they'd finally click that link and come to my site, they converted like hotcakes. So I had a constant stream of people coming in and buying my products. It was a beautiful thing. If you could ever experience that, it's a beautiful thing. Knowing the other things that converted well were like people that were actually actively searching for campaign blasting on Google. I would come up and because if they're searching on my name, they're probably they're very interested in my program or whatever. So there were certain keywords or certain sources of traffic that mattered, but a lot that didn't. Like I said, that guy that had a decent sized list didn't convert at all because there was no match there. The quality was less. I don't know what that mismatch was exactly, but it just didn't work. So it's the same way with everything we're doing, right? It's the same way with now, for me, my business now, we're very, very focused on social media. But there's certain social media platforms that can convert or do well for us, and others that don't do anything for us. But we continue for reasons to be on there, just as a presence. But knowing those things and knowing also it's not at all about the big numbers. I don't know what, I've done a little bit of work and stuff in my business with like some, people on social media and stuff that have decent followings, influencers or whatever, or medium-sized influencers, I don't know. But I knew they were struggling monetarily. Their business as a whole wasn't doing well. I'm thinking of somebody in particular. But if you look at their profile and look at what they're doing, it's like, oh my God, look at all these followers. But they weren't doing well financially. It's the same with somebody you look and they're on the social webs and they're like we're just doing our thing. We have somewhat of a following. It's not huge. We're not influencers. I'm not even close to being an influencer. I kind of don't know if I want to be one. But we're doing very well because the parties that we are getting the attention from and the leads we get from all that do well. They convert. So, and we're doing well. It all comes down to what are our numbers? Are we doing well? Even if you have a fuzzy idea, like if okay, this person reached out to me on this particular platform and that turned into some business, that's a good sign. If that happens more than once, that's even a better sign. And so that's kind of my thing too, right? I'm taking note of, who's reaching out to me where, right? And where's that business coming from? And so I'm less concerned about, we want to increase our numbers. We want to, but we want to be able to do that organically in a way that the reason we're doing that is because we're bringing the value, right? People are actually interested in what we're doing and we're impacting them in some way. So that's really our metric there, that like we got to keep tuning. We just had a meeting on Monday reviewing our content for this next quarter and figuring out what we're going to tune, what we're going to talk more about, and what's getting the most interactions or is impacting the most, and we'll focus more on that. So we're always fine tuning that. But I'm getting off base here a little bit. But the bottom line here, the lesson here, is worry less about how much you're getting. Like if you're getting all this traffic from search engines, great. But is that what's actually going to help you grow? And it's like lending to, actually conversions and sales. Or is there another source out there that's smaller, maybe 5% of your traffic, but it's responsible for 80% of your sales? Could be. And if it is, maybe you should focus on that and not worry about all that other stuff. All right. Hope you found this interesting, useful, and you're wiser for hanging out with me for the last 13, 14 minutes. Take care. Have a great one.